Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm here as always with my co-host Ross the Boss, and today we have a very special guest. It is Freddie Stevenson, who won a national championship while playing football at Florida State. He has a very inspiring story, and his new book, Trials to Triumph, is available now. Let's welcome Freddie Stevenson.
So, guys, I appreciate you having me on the pod today. Just came in from a workout. This Florida heat is scorching right now, so I'm excited to be back in the house around some AC.
Well, listen, there's nothing hotter than Freddie Stevenson right now, at least in Florida. We know that for sure. Now, you decided to write this book. I'm wondering what led you to take the step. I'm writing a book myself on psychology. It's a whole different thing. But I wondered what made you decide to make that leap and write the book?
To be honest, it was just going through the process after I was transitioning after the game and just talking with other players that felt like they didn't necessarily get a fair shot and they were just struggling to come to grips with life after ball. And a lot of guys, they were just stuck on that. And I've seen guys over the course of the years, they haven't been able to put things together still. So that's really what led me to write this book, just going through my journey. I wanted that pain, that struggle, and ultimately finding that purpose to resonate with others.
Now, Freddie, you in your book, you mentioned your mom raised you very poor from Florida. Your dad was incarcerated for selling drugs. This is all in your book. And I mean, tell us how bad it was and how poor you guys were growing up.
Yeah, it was bad. We were homeless, moving around from place to place, just trying to find a place to lay our heads at night. And my mom working 2 to 3 jobs. It was crazy. And a part that people don't really know as far as our situation was the fear as far as being a child. I tell people all the time, we didn't necessarily know that we were poor at the time because we're kids. We're just trying to have fun. And as long as we have a place to lay our heads, we're good. But the part that really bothered us as kids is when your mom is working late at night and knowing that you're in an environment where the crime rate is high, you don't know if she's going to make it home. So that was the scariest part for us growing up. And of course, you had your struggles as far as making ends meet. But it was a wild experience. And that time, I really believe it molded me into who I am today.
Well, so I am a psychologist, in addition to talking about sports, and I talk all the time about the influence these experiences have on us, the influences of our parents. And my understanding is that, things weren't always bad for your family, but when your dad was caught for drug dealing, that really shifted things. Do I have that right?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, my pops, he was the guy, kingpin in our area, and we had everything. And I talk about it in my book. We didn't really know where the money was coming from. As a kid, you don't ask those questions. And I kind of dig deeper into that and tell how I found out what he was doing. It's a crazy story, but yeah, we had everything. And then the situation happened. He got set up, and he had to face a lot of time. And we didn't know when he was going to be able to come home. So our life flips in the snap of a finger.
Wow. And so I haven't gotten to read the whole book yet, and I plan to. I'm excited to. But I heard there's a story about McDonald's in there. We wanted to give some examples of how hard the times really were, and I hear that this is an example of that. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, it was about 8 p.m. in the evening, and we hadn't eaten all day. So just to give a little background, it's 5 kids. My mother has the task of raising 5 kids on her own. And that day, my baby sister, my mom's pushing her around in a stroller. She starts crying because she hasn't eaten all day. And my mother, she was calm at the time. She gathered everybody together, and she just began walking us. We didn't know where we were going, but we just trusted our mother. And as we're walking, we see a McDonald's. So she tells us to go in, we walk in, and she orders a cheeseburger. And the total comes out to $1.05. And we didn't know at the time my mother only had $1 to her name. Kind of looking around like, okay, 1 cheeseburger, 5 kids, this doesn't really make sense. And we see her pull out the dollar, and she asks the cashier if it's okay if she just gives her the dollar because she doesn't have a nickel. And for some reason, the cashier, she wouldn't allow her to get the burger with just that dollar. So we had to watch my mom go around McDonald's begging for a nickel. And it was an embarrassing time. And we didn't know that's all she had. Somebody was generous enough to give her that nickel though. And when she gets up and she orders the burger, we're all embarrassed. She walks us outside and she starts slicing it up into 5 pieces. And we start eating. And as we're eating, my older sister, she looks at my mom and notices that she isn't eating. And she asks her why she wasn't eating. And then we all look around and we start trying to offer my mom some food. And she just turns everybody down and bursts into tears. And that was the first time, like, I'll tell you, as kids, we didn't really pay attention to how poor we were. As a kid, all you really worry about is having fun, no matter what your circumstances are. But that was the first time going through all our struggles that we were like, okay, this is pretty bad. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, telling her, like, man, I'm going to do something. I don't know what it is. And I know this was everybody's mindset. We're going to change our situation. And I made a promise to her, and we all made that promise.
And you did, and thank God for sports. I mean, you went to high school and you played football and you got injured. And tell us what happened.
Yeah, everybody hears my story and they think I was just this big phenom, and it ended that way at the end of my high school career. But my 11th grade year, I was unranked, unknown, and I'm wondering if I'm gonna have the opportunity to go to college. And the second to last game of the season, I have an injury. I break my fibula, break my ankle, lose all the cartilage in my ankle. And at the time, I didn't know how bad it was until I went to the hospital. And the doctors, they x-rayed me, and I didn't care about the injury, the surgery, anything they were talking to me about. My first question was, am I going to be able to play again? And how long? And they were telling me, you need to focus on being able to walk. Your career may be over. And I remember just going back and forth with them, telling them that I made a promise to my mom that I was going to make it to the NFL and change our lives. And they had to calm me down. It was a crazy situation. It got very tense in the hospital. But they ended up calming me down. And 2 surgeries later, I remember being bedbound for about 4 or 5 months, I believe. And schools just started taking a chance on me. I didn't know if I was going to have an opportunity to play at the next level. But I remember one day, I was just frustrated after going through the rehabilitation process. I remember crying that day. I just didn't feel like my leg was getting any better. Nobody was calling me. And then I got a call at about, I think it was like 3:05 p.m. I remember it to this day. It was UMass, Coach Alan Super. He calls me. I didn't know. I'm thinking he's just standing there looking at me. It was like, man, we looked at your tape. We know about your injury. We're invested in you. And if you have to come here and sit out a year, we're okay with that because you're a baller. And I was like, okay. And he's like, we want to offer you a full ride scholarship. And I just remember crying out to my pops. And by this time, my pops was out of prison. I was crying out to him, and I didn't really care if another school called because I had an opportunity to continue chasing my dreams.
That's incredible. So when did you learn that Florida State gave you a scholarship?
It took a while. I believe by the time Florida State offered me, I was able to go back to school. So throughout this whole process, I was homeschooled, and teachers were coming in to teach me at my house or over the phone. So Florida State came in about April. My injury was in November, and I was able to go back to school in like April. So Florida State came in around that time and offered me, but I wasn't really high on Florida State. I grew up a Miami fan, so that's the offer I wanted. So it was crazy going back and forth with them. I wasn't really interested. But Miami and Florida and a lot of the other top Florida schools, they were kind of scared off by my injury, and Florida State was there. And my mother, she didn't want me to leave the state. Just how we were raised up, close-knit family, she didn't want me to leave the state. And she wouldn't sign the paper for me to go to Texas A&M. So I was like, man, I got to figure out what school I want to go to in Florida because she wanted to talk to the coaches from other states. Like, it was crazy. So I went through the process, and eventually I fell in love with Florida State, and that's how that happened.
What was it a big shock going to a big program like that, after what all you had been through?
I would say at that point, yes, but when I was coming up, no, I always felt like I would be that guy. But at that point, I didn't know if I was going to be able to even play the game. Like, the doubt, you're human, the doubts start to creep in. So I was just thinking, all right, if I go to UMass, that's cool. And then Western Kentucky comes on. And then like 2 days later, you get a big schools. I think it was West Virginia. They offered first. They were the big Power 5 conference team to offer. Then everybody else just started rolling in.
That's great. And did you have to, I mean, going to Florida State, I don't want to get the school in trouble, but did they find you a job so you can have some spending money? I mean, how did that whole work with you going to school and buying books and all that stuff? Did they just pay for everything, or tell us the process?
Yeah, I was on full ride, so all the books and everything were covered. And then you get your scholarship checks, your Pell Grant. And I learned my whole life how to save, so it wasn't an issue for me. I knew how to save, so it wasn't an issue for me. My biggest problem when we got the money was I'm a guy that likes to eat. So as soon as I get the money, my problem is making sure I don't go spend it out at all these nice restaurants in the city. But I didn't really have an issue with money when I was there.
Let's talk a little bit about the national championship. What was it like? You won it as a freshman. What was that moment like?
It's crazy because coming from my high school, we never went to the playoffs ever. Like, so I go from a garbage squad to a team that's a powerhouse. And I remember our first game of the year, we were playing Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh jumped out on us, I believe, 14-0 early on. I'm like, dang, man, it's just like high school, man. All right, I guess just keep playing hard. And then we came back. I was like, okay, I'm at a different school now. Everybody's good here. Like, we can ball here. I'm not the only good one now.
All right.
But it was cool, especially just being able to be around all that leadership, all the different leadership. All it does is bring the best out of each and every player every day. And I truly believe that team doesn't get enough credit. When you think about the historic teams, the numbers that we were able to put up that year, and it's tough. If you go back, and it's going to be controversial, if Auburn isn't still in our plays, we blow them up early on. They had a coach that was on our roster a few years before, and I remember one of our guys on the sideline, he was telling our coach, like, they're still in our plays. They're still in our plays, coach. He didn't believe him. But then later on in the game, he started realizing it, and we made the adjustment, and it was a wrap from there.
Now, Freddie, I saw you play in college. Very impressed. Rushing touchdowns. You played fullback, rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. You did everything. You were unbelievable. And the draft came along. You weren't drafted. I'm sure you were disappointed. The Bears call you like immediately and wanted to sign you. Tell us the whole story.
Yeah, it was crazy because I got people calling me before the draft telling me they're going to take me in the 4th round. And this is not day 3. This is before the first day of the draft even starts. So I'm thinking I'm going early, and my agent, he's in my ear, he's like, man, you go anywhere from 4 to undrafted when you play the fullback position. It just depends on team's needs. But me personally, I thought I would get drafted. And I remember the Bears calling me before the draft, telling me that they were going to draft me. And throughout the whole process, they kept me updated. I know they lost 2 picks early on when they traded up for Mitch Trubisky. And then they traded up for Eddie Jackson in the 4th. And they were only left with 1 pick. And with the last pick in the 5th round, they took the O-lineman. But I remember them in the 5th round, they called me immediately saying, man, we think you're going to get drafted, but if you don't, we want you to know we need you here. And I just went through the process, and ultimately I ended up with them. But, yeah, it's tough. I think a lot of people, they find that out every single year with the draft. You have all these expectations, but you truly never know. You can be a guy that's told you're going to go 1st round, 1st pick, and then you can end up sliding to the 3rd. Like, some crazy things happen in the draft. But it was once I got the opportunity to get that call and sign with a team, all you know at that point is it's time to go to work. This is my dream. I'm living it. Let's go to work.
Now, you ended up being a late cut, and I imagine that was very difficult, but you had been through so much adversity. What was it like for you when that happened?
To be honest with you, when I got cut, I wasn't even like, most guys were taking it hard because for most guys, they don't know if their career is in jeopardy, if they ever play again. But when I get cut, I'm like, man, the team's going to call me tomorrow. Like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that. And the performance I was able to put together during training camp, yeah, I was shocked that I got cut, but a few things weren't in my favor. That's a completely different story. But I knew that I would get signed soon, and that was the shocking part for me when teams didn't call. And when I started getting calls from my agent, and he's letting me know that teams are questioning my character. That kind of made me wonder what was said about me behind the scenes, because through the whole pre-draft process, that's what teams are raving about me. The fact that I'm a team captain, everybody speaks highly of me. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it was out of my control.
I mean, I watch Hard Knocks on HBO. I don't know if you watch the show, but they show the person, they call you in the room with the coach, or usually the coach or the GM, and you give your playbook, and they say, well, I'm sure you get drafted. I'm sure somebody else is going to pick you up. But my question to you is, what was the process like? Did they ask you for your playbook? Did they call you in the room? Was the coach there? Or did he just make a phone call and say, hey, you're cut? I mean, how did that whole work out?
Yeah, I was at the hotel, I believe, and I think I got either a text or a call, and they just told me to bring my playbook and my iPad. And I was one of the fortunate guys, because they had me meet the whole coaching staff before I left. So our expectation is that they signed us back to the practice squad or something, but they had a few guys on the defensive side that got injured. But I met with my position coach, coaching staff, then you got your front office guys, and then they inform me of the decision. But that's really how it works. It's different for everybody. Some guys, they don't want to see face-to-face because they know it's going to be a confrontational situation.
Right. And then you went to the Orlando Apollos in the AAL League, and the team actually folded like in the middle of the season. And I mean, tell us that whole story.
I'm not gonna lie to you. We went out there, and we kind of knew that the league was gonna be in trouble if they didn't get everything together, because there was a lot of things that were unorganized with that, and it was weird. But at that point, it was kind of I was kind of nailing the coffin for me, because I was just trying to get back into the league and then getting with teams and having great workouts. And like I told you, hearing them say they were questioning my character, it was a black cloud over my name at that point, which was weird to me. And then Apollos, that was my last opportunity to really get some film. And when that folded, my daughter's being born at this point. So I just started trying to focus on what I can do until another opportunity opens up, just to take care of my family. And I just started to move forward at that point.
Do you know anything about what this black cloud, where it came from? Because you had always been a leader and a captain. It seems like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, to be honest with you, that was the most frustrating thing for me, because like you said, I'm always the guy that leads by example. Nobody's going to outwork me. Leader, team player, all my teammates love me. So I'm not really sure, but I just think sometimes when you get down to those final cuts, it just comes down to different things. They may like a guy a little bit more. And some people, I think one thing that me personally that may rub people the wrong way, just depending, is I'm not a guy that's going to kiss up to the coaches. I show respect, and I respect them, and I give them all the honor that they deserve, but I'm not the type of guy that's going to kiss up to them, do this and that and the third. I'm going to do my job, respect the coach, yes sir, no sir, and be about business. And you have some guys, they want their ego stroked a little bit, and I think that may have been the situation that occurred where I was at.
I think it's great that you stuck to your guns and you stayed you, but what it shows me is how hard it is to make it. You had a huge amount of talent and drive, and you had the right mindset, and even with that, it's hard to make. But sports still played a key role, from what I could tell, in your life, lifting you out of some darkness. And I wonder what advice you'd give to the next big star who's trying to make it.
I think the biggest thing is I've learned along this journey is really just control what you control. Me, I couldn't control what was being said about me behind the scenes. And at that point, all people are trying to do is see how you respond. So if I would have went out the way, I truly believe a lot of these teams, when I was meeting with them, they were saying that to test me and see if I was going to badmouth the coach or badmouth the team, and I've never done that. And that's not the type of person I am. My body of work speaks for itself. I don't have to do that. And honestly, if you're putting your best foot forward each and every day, going hard, taking care of what you can control, then you put yourself in the best situation to succeed. And you just let the cards fall where they may at that point. A lot of things are outside of your control, and you'll drive yourself crazy trying to control the uncontrollables.
I mean, you do many things. You're multitasking over there in Florida. You also started a clothing line. And what do you tell me about your clothing line? Because I'm always looking for cool clothes to wear. I'm a stylish guy. You can ask Dr. Dan Ratner. Tell me about your clothing line.
Yeah, I got a shirt on right now. It says TCV, but that's for Triumph 105. It's Roman numerals for the 105. But yeah, I started this a little bit after I stopped playing. Started the clothing brand, and it was ultimately with this vision of what I'm building today. I was gonna start off with the clothing, and I knew I was in the process of finishing up my book, and at that time I was getting paid as a speaker. So I was just trying to tie everything in together and turn this into a powerhouse, to be honest, and show people that, all right, even if you don't make it as an athlete, you can still make a huge impact in this world. And I know I'm showing people that right now because there's so many people that are hitting me up saying they're finding motivation to continue to keep pushing forward because I didn't give up. So many people want to see me give up, but I refuse to. If I was going to give up, we would have gave up back in the day when we were homeless. We overcame too much to get to this point for us to give up now.
Well, that's the great thing. You're bringing that same drive that you had in football to everything else. And now with the clothing line, with the book, I wondered, what do you hope most people get out of the book? You know, you're writing it for a reason. You want people to get a message.
I just say keep hope. I think when you get to a place in the book, you'll kind of figure out some of the things that I was going through at that time when I was going through depression and fighting a lifestyle that almost cost me my freedom, going back to my old neighborhood and going through those things and those trials. And ultimately, I was suicidal. I didn't know who I was. My whole identity was wrapped into being a football player. So it was me sitting down and having a conversation with myself and figuring out, what do you want out of life? What do you truly want out of life? And I tell this story all the time. I remember when I was fighting it and I was going through the lifestyle where I'm in the streets and I'm making money, because I remember training for years and I didn't have anything to show for it. I only had $650 left. So I was like, man, I just got to make some money to make ends meet. I got a kid coming. We got to make some money. And I remember a kid one day, we had a transaction for $10,000 and he looks at me like he's disappointed. I don't know who he is. He's like, man, I know you. I'm like, nah, you don't know me. He's like, nah, you're Freddie Stevenson. And I was like, dang. He's like, man, you should be doing more with your life than this. Like, you have way more to do with your life. Like, you're supposed to go out there and achieve greatness. And it sat with me like forever. And ultimately, one thing led to another. And by force, I was ultimately forced to leave the game. But those words, I believe they saved me, because a lot of people, you see them leave the streets and then they come back because that money, that fast money, it's addicting to some people. But I haven't touched that lifestyle since. No matter how hard times have gotten, I just remember those words in the back of my head. And it's like he was sitting there to speak to me.
I'm so glad that he said that to you and that you took it the way you did. You took it to heart. So now you're only 26 years old. That's the amazing thing about football. People are out of it so young.
Yeah, but Freddie, one question before Dan asks this. Las Vegas Raiders call you today or tomorrow. We want you in camp next month in July. We want you to, we're changing our offense around. We want a fullback. We want Freddie Stevenson to come out here and try out. What do you do?
I'm going. I'm a competitor. I'm a competitor.
Just making sure. I just want to make sure no one's talked you out of it. But Dan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was asking what to do next, and Ross was like, "Hey,
I knew where you were going, but I obviously
I'm with you.
Go back to the NFL.
I'm with you. I think it's and I love that you have that drive, Freddie, that you would go back. But if you don't, what's next for you?
For me, it's turning this thing into a worldwide brand, a worldwide company, and we got some huge things in the work that we can't really speak on now, but it's absolutely going to make a major mark in the world. And it's crazy. I started this, and this was my vision when I wrote this book, when I started the company years ago, and we're ultimately going to get to that point. So if football happens, that's cool, but I'm not worried about that anymore. It's just something that if the call comes, then I wouldn't pass it up. That's just a testament to the things that you can overcome in this life when you believe. But I'm not worried about that. We're building something big over here right now.
Well, your story is a true inspiration, Freddie. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you spending the time with us. His new book, Trials to Triumph, is available now. Go out and get it. It sounds like a great read. I'm going to get it myself. I can't wait to hear more about the details, and it's been a pleasure meeting you, Freddie.